Hey guys, so yeah, this is my first YouTube video related to my beloved Gunners, the Arsenal Football Club, and I'm just going to start with a reflection on the Nottingham Forest game and then maybe look more broadly at how things are going at the Emirates, how I see things and where I think the club need to move forward, and just to offer my perspective on everything related to Arsenal. So, starting with the Nottingham Forest game, obviously bitterly disappointing for the team to lose, to get knocked out of the FA Cup, and it's only one of two opportunities that Arsenal had really to win a trophy this season. Of course, we're in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup coming up over the next 10 days, but this game against Nottingham Forest was vitally important. But Arsenal lost 1-0, and give Nottingham Forest their props. They were absolutely fantastic. They made it competitive, they were organised, their crowd really made it a difficult atmosphere for Arsenal. They showed a lot of quality as well. As I mentioned in my blog post, I thought Jed Spence, their right back, was really zestful and energetic with his running, and showed a couple of moments of quality as well where he was dribbling in between the Arsenal lines and getting in between defenders and putting crosses in. So well done to Nottingham Forest. They were pretty good, and you could really see as well with Nottingham Forest how they are a cut above some of the other lower league opponents Arsenal faced this season. So Arsenal beat Sunderland in the Carabao Cup quarter-final 5-1, and in that game Sunderland were okay, but they didn't really lay a glove on Arsenal. And it was a similar story earlier in that competition with AFC Wimbledon as well. You could see that Arsenal were much the better team. This time, it was a completely different mood. Like, it felt as if Nottingham Forest really came and took it to Arsenal. And you could almost feel like, although they're a championship team, that they could easily be in the Premier League in that bottom five. So Nottingham Forest, I wouldn't say there's much between Forest and, let's say, Norwich, Watford, Burnley, Everton, sides like that in the bottom 5 or 6 of the Premier League. You wouldn't necessarily say Forest were any worse than those teams. Certainly Everton, how they're showing at the moment. I know Everton will improve and you'd expect them to, but yeah, I didn't think Forest were bad outfit at all. So fair play to them. In relation to Arsenal, I thought we could have done more. We maybe weren't quite incisive enough with our passing. There wasn't enough dynamism in the midfield. We weren't making runs. Like, often you'd see Ben White and Rob Holding on the ball, and although they weren't great with the ball in that game, there wasn't much happening in front of them, and you sense there was a lack of cohesion, a lack of understanding. This was a team of players who hadn't played much together, and we missed that familiarity, that understanding that has been forged this season by and large through consistent selection. So we've seen Ben White and Gabriel generally have that central defensive partnership. We've seen Thomas Partey and either Xhaka or Lokonga generally having that central midfield too. And then we've had familiarity on the width with Tomiyasu on the right hand side of the defence, with either Tierney or Tavares on the left, and also the front four. So although the front four was the same as it has been in recent matches, it was more what was happening behind them. There was a disconnect. There wasn't enough of a connection between the phases. So between defence, between midfield and between the attack. And as a result, Forest were pretty comfortable in setting up their rigid banks of four and counteracting what Arsenal delivered. So fair play to Nottingham Forest on that. They did stifle Arsenal, and yeah, it's a disappointment. But I think bigger picture, Arsenal need to reflect and say, okay, right now maybe our squad isn't robust enough. Maybe the fringe players aren't quite experienced enough to handle that kind of test. So Sambi Lokonga is playing his first season in English football. Same for Nuno Tavares. Obviously, Charlie Patino's only 18 years old, academy player. So it's a lot to ask of these guys to step in and beat a dogged, seasoned Nottingham Forest team. So first things first, it's not a disaster. I think Arsenal now need to look at where they can go from here and how they manage these next 7 days, because I think these next 7 to 12 days are actually really important for Arsenal Football Club. And I think to that end, Arsenal need to bolster their midfield. We need one or two guys to come through the door over the next 7 days. Now, whether that's Renato Sanchez, we've been linked with him. We've been linked with Douglas Luiz at Aston Villa. We've been linked with one or two others. Whoever it is, I think we do need to get a midfielder of that type who can shore things up defensively, who can be a physical presence, who can pass really well, recycle the possession. Whoever it is, Arsenal are going to be linked with players. They've got Edu as their scout, so he's got a number of links he could draw upon. But Arsenal need to get someone through the door ASAP, and preferably before the Liverpool game, because obviously Liverpool are a fantastic team, experienced team. They've won the European Champions League and the Premier League in the last 3 to 4 seasons. So Arsenal need to be very prepared and mentally and physically up for this game. And going into that Liverpool game, I think we need to address that central midfield combination. I don't think Lokonga and Patino are quite ready to play as a pair. I think you could play Lokonga for sure, but I think you'd need an experienced guy alongside. If Granit Xhaka's fit, then you'd hope that Xhaka could come in alongside Lokonga. If Xhaka isn't available, I do feel that midfield signing is a priority before the Liverpool game. I don't know how realistic it is because Liverpool is only on Thursday, but I think that needs to happen ASAP. So that's one thing. And let's say, worst comes to the worst, no midfielder comes through the door in the next 2 to 3 days, and Granit Xhaka doesn't recover in time for Liverpool. I think Arsenal at that point need to take stock and think, how can we adapt to this situation? And for me, there is a possible alternative that wasn't put forward for the Nottingham Forest game, and I think that is either Ben White in midfield or Callum Chambers in midfield. Now, Callum Chambers went on loan to Fulham a couple of years ago. By all accounts, was very good, played in central midfield that season, and was their player of the season that year. Ben White, one of Ben White's qualities, excuse me, one of Ben White's qualities is his ability on the ball. He's a very good passer of the ball. He can pick diagonal passes. And of course, he's a central defender, so he'll be fine with regards to the defensive element of that position. So I think Ben White in central midfield wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I could see a situation with Ben White and Lokonga playing alongside each other. And then maybe putting Pablo Mari alongside Rob Holding. I think Pablo Mari is a very good player. By all accounts, last season he did well at points. He hasn't had much of a look in this year, but why not give Pablo Mari a go? If he's still committed to Arsenal, if he still wants to be there, then give Mari a run out with either Rob Holding or even Callum Chambers. You could bring Callum Chambers in central defence. Then you make a decision on your left back. Do you go with Tierney or Tavares? Obviously, Tavares was taken off against Nottingham Forest, and that was controversial because he was taken off after 35 minutes, which for me was a little bit unwise on Arteta's part. I think you need to be careful about how you manage a player if they're not quite firing on all cylinders, if they're having a tough night. Why not wait 10 minutes before you take Nuno Tavares off? Why not wait till half time? Instead, you've taken him off after 35 minutes. It's created a bit of maybe panic, maybe uncertainty amongst the players. So that was something that maybe Arteta could look at. However, there's still a decision to make for the Liverpool game. Do you play Nuno Tavares at left back, or do you go with Kieran Tierney? I would maybe go with Tierney on this occasion, just because maybe Tavares and Arteta need to just have a chat, need to sit down, and with that in mind, maybe Tierney's just a little bit more ready, more prepared for this particular game against Liverpool. I think Tavares, you can definitely bring him back for the Premier League. In some of those games against the teams we'd expect to beat, maybe at home, I think Tavares needs to play more, because I think that's one thing you can look at with Mikel Arteta. He tends to sometimes sideline players for extended periods after they've had good performances. So I mentioned in my blog as well, Ainsley Maitland-Niles was man of the match against Watford in November, and we don't see him for 6-7 weeks, and then he leaves the club and goes to Roma. Now, I feel as if you need to somehow use these players more. So whether that's giving them 25 minutes at the end of a Premier League game, like we've been on a couple of good runs. We beat Leeds 4-1, we were beating Norwich 3-4-0 after, let's say, 60-65 minutes of those games. Why not bring on Maitland-Niles in that situation to shore things up? If he was available. My mind escapes me. He might have had one or two issues that meant he wasn't available. But if he was there on the bench, why not bring him on in those situations? And then similarly with Tavares, you could have maybe used him more in some of those games. But now he's been out cold for 6 weeks. He comes in against Forest, has a difficult game, and all of a sudden the perception is he's somehow not ready. There's a bit of a rift with the manager. So how can Arteta better preserve and better maintain the form and confidence of his players without completely leaving them on the sidelines and not using them? So I think there's some middle ground Arteta needs to strike with players like that who aren't maybe nailed on starters, but how can he get them to feature more and not completely either use them 100% and then not use them at all? It seems a bit all or nothing. You need to find a middle ground, and I feel maybe Arteta can strike that balance, because that might be a reason why guys like Maitland-Niles want to leave, why Eddie Nketiah wants to leave. It's because maybe they don't feel they're getting enough game time in between their opportunities that they do play. So yeah, that's something to look at. But back to the team 11. So I'm suggesting Pablo Mari and Rob Holding or Callum Chambers in the centre. Give Cedric another go at right back. He wasn't great against Forest, but yeah, maybe give him another go. Or you could potentially put Ben White at right back, play Mari and Holding in the central defence, and play Callum Chambers in midfield alongside Lokonga. That could be another way of going, because Cedric wasn't great against Forest. But I'll leave that, as long as, for me, the big priority is maybe not exposing that central combination of Lokonga and Patino together. So how you break that up and how you then rejig the defence, Arteta's best position for that. But I think for me, the big thing to say is is to avoid that same repetition that we saw against Nottingham Forest. So to break up Lokonga and Patino maybe as a partnership. Yeah, so I would go with Lokonga and Ben White, as I said, but you could go Lokonga, Chambers, and then Ben White at right back. Then the goalkeeper, I'd maybe give Leno another go. I think he definitely deserved it. Great performance against Nottingham Forest. So I'd keep Bernd Leno between the sticks for this one. Ramsdale can come back for the North London derby. I would go with the same front four, I think, with the exception of Lacazette for Nketiah. So I'd bring Lacazette back for Nketiah as the number 9, and behind him I'd have Odegaard as the number 10 in the central position. I'd have Gabriel Martinelli on the left, and I would use Bukayo Saka on the right. Now, we really need to get these guys into the game, because this is where the excitement is with Arsenal Football Club. This is where we have the fireworks, and this is where we can really hurt Liverpool. If we can get Saka one-on-one with Robertson or one-on-one with Tsimikas, he can really make things happen. He's a difference maker. We know about Bukayo Saka's quality. His dribbling is phenomenal. He can go left, he can go right, he can kick with either foot, he can create, he can score, he links the play, he can draw a foul. So Bukayo Saka is a guy we need to get in advanced positions as much as possible. Same with Gabriel Martinelli. We need to see this guy running at the Liverpool right back, whoever that may be on the night. We need to see him really one-on-one, because we know about Martinelli's speed, and he can also pick a pass, and if he gets in on goal, we know about his finishing. He's very clinical. Martin Odegaard, he's the guy that can make the clinical passes. He has the vision, he has the awareness of what's around him to link the play, to connect the midfield to the likes of Saka and Martinelli. Odegaard can be the guy to find those clever passes, and then Lacazette as well. His link-up play is fantastic. We need to maintain this pattern of play where those four guys are interchanging and creating chances. So yes, disappointment against Nottingham Forest. However, there's room for optimism. Arsenal can definitely bounce back against Liverpool. They're going to Anfield. It won't be an easy tie. Of course it won't. If Arsenal can get out of that game with a 1 point negative difference or better, so in other words, if we lose 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, or keep the scores level, obviously if we're in front, even better. But one of those three scenarios, I'd take 1-0 behind, get back at the Emirates next Thursday, the Thursday after, and see what the boys can do. Yeah, so that's how I read things, guys. I still think it's very much a positive situation at the moment at the Emirates. I think Arteta just needs to ensure relationships are sound, have a chat with his guys, with Nuno Tavares, make sure everything's okay there, and bring in a central midfielder. I think that's important. If it's not possible, Ben White, I would put him into central midfield. And with a bit of luck, Arsenal can pull out something special across the two legs against Liverpool. And who knows, even nick a win against Tottenham in the North London derby. As I said, guys, big 2 weeks for Arsenal Football Club. I'm fully behind them here from Melbourne. Let's hope they can dust off this disappointment and move on with their next fixture. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, fantastic. And stay tuned, because I'll be bringing more Arsenal-related content, more blogs, more videos, and come on the Gunners. Really happy with how things are going. We just need to keep the faith as supporters. Okay, guys, peace.